This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with a delightful guest. We've had a chance to talk on a number of occasions. Dr. Jayne Gardner, who's the mindset coach for founders and creators. So, Dr. Jayne, I am thrilled to have you on because I've spent so much time speaking with leaders and executives and helping them understand how to continue to refine and build their skills, even when they reach the top of their game. And so having you on is just an incredible pleasure, particularly for helping give people insight on business decoded ideas and tips as they continue to mature and grow and evolve their business. Welcome to Business Decoded.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. I'm glad to be here and excited about the way you have it set up. What are we going to talk about? This is exciting and a whole new way to do a podcast. I wasn't given a list of topics.
I know we just try to keep it real and honest so that our listeners can gain from what your knowledge and learning is. But you, for the most part, grew up in Texas. You traveled, I presume, the country and the world helping CEOs figure out how to better manage their business. And I know that you have a great tagline as you approach these business leaders to really help them engage with you and figure out where they want to go with their business.
Most of them know what their talent is and what they want to create.
Right.
But they still don't quite know who they are enough to be without doubt.
Right. Right. And that's an interesting point with the doubt piece. I've spent some time discussing the impact of fear. Even in senior leaders, and that doubt, even at a CEO level, can be critical to how they manage the business and how they produce outcomes. I've often thought, you take one organization like a GE and Jack Welch back in the days, how does one person make a difference in a company? You think that people are interchangeable, but the reality is that it takes a really good talent that learns how to overcome that fear and that doubt to build success.
To be authentic.
Right. Right.
But I always I don't know if I've ever shown you this, but I love neuroscience.
Yes.
And a lot of times the way the brain works explains fear and doubt to us. So if you take your hand like this,
okay, and
the brain supposedly your fist is going to represent that.
Right.
Well, you take your thumb and you put it over your hand like that. That is your limbic system right in there, your feeling brain. Now, your fingers, when they fold over it, are your cognitive brain. Right? And then the visceral brain is attached to your nervous system. So it's the basic three parts of the brain. Right. Even though the brain, of course, is the most complicated algorithm in the world, But what I've learned from it is that the limbic system, the seat of your power, is your emotions. And it's sitting right in the middle of your brain. Okay. So if we are very emotional and reactive, then our limbic system becomes sometimes too active in there.
Gotcha.
If we've loaded up and we're upset about things, resentful, or have packed in a lot of old emotions, if you looked on the MRI, you'd see that area kind of bulging and swollen. Right. And then here's the thinking brain trying to keep a cap on it.
Oh, interesting.
So if you haven't helped an executive manage their emotions, what happens is they're going through life kind of like this, being led by the emotions. Right. Whereas to get your honest, innovative, creative best, we want to make you balanced. So that the cognitive brain and the feeling brain are really together and synchronistic.
Now, that's interesting. So you've written 5 books.
Yes.
Now, have you laid that out in your books as well from a concept perspective? Tell us about your 5 books first, because I think and we'll get into more details on what you do and how you do it. But tell us about the 5 books that you've written, because I'd love for our listener to be able to go out and understand your work, your body work, and then figure out what you want them to learn and how you want them to learn it by looking at those books.
Okay. Well, my first book is How to Change Other People. Okay. A very naive title, a very sarcastic title, because what I learned in my life was you can't change someone else. You change yourself. And so it's kind of the story of my life. It was my first book and what happened to me when I tried to change other people. Okay. I remember looking at my first husband when I walked down the aisle. I think I told you the story of, okay, I can get him to have a better haircut and I can dress him different. And some of the things, I had this idea that I was going to create this marriage out of changing him. Well, it didn't work out very well. But the book, How to Change Other People, is the results of what I've learned in life.
Now, I'd love to get some insight because I hear that all the time from people when they get into relationships specifically, that they go in doing exactly the same. They figure, they will change once we get married.
Yes.
And they're hopeful, and it just doesn't work out often that way.
All the way down to entering my office when I used to work with families. As the marriage is having problems, and one of them leads the other one in and says, okay, I want you to fix this guy or this girl.
Right.
So that's what it ends up with.
Right.
And so the growth mindset is what I'm looking for when I interview people to see if they're the people that I think will be successful with my program.
Right.
Because I have to sort through and really decide, do they have a growth mindset? Are they willing to look at what they can change in any situation?
Right.
I mean, think about it. Doesn't that make a beautiful partner?
It does.
And the most difficult, journey we're on in life.
So book 2, I'd love for you to talk about, but I know in our conversation, you mentioned kind of your evolution as well. When you were young, you said this to me once, that you asked a lot of questions as a young girl, and you didn't necessarily take just what was given to you. You tend to ask more questions, and you wanted to find your own path. Mm-hmm. And I think that has continued as you've evolved and grown. And you started out as a teacher, mm-hmm. and you decided, look, I need more. You wanted to ask more questions. I wanted to do more, and you went on to get your PhD.
Yes.
So tell me a little about that journey. Then I'd love to get back to your book, book number 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Sure. Teaching was what I was told when I was visiting my counselor as a senior in high school. I was ranked 4th in my class.
Oh, wow.
But what my guidance counselor told me in a very small town I grew up many years ago was you have 3 choices. You can be a nurse, a secretary, or a, nurse, secretary, or a helper of some kind, I guess. So I was never told I could be anything but those 3 things.
Right.
Oh, a teacher.
Right.
That's what I chose, was being a teacher. Unmotivated at all about being a teacher, I just chose without thinking, just influenced by my background and what girls are supposed to do.
Right. Right.
So I became a teacher and found that the unhinged emotions of adolescence were not exactly my audience to deal with.
Right.
So I went back to school, this time looking for, what do I want to do?
Right.
And what can I do, which is anything at that point. And loved psychology, got involved in that. And did first 10 years of my business was about family systems. And
interesting. Okay.
Helping families. And I worked in mental hospitals with some of the most seriously ill people that you could work with.
Right.
But I cut my teeth there, on what really is important to learn about people, working with these really bipolar people behind locked doors.
Okay.
And one of the discouraging things for me was that there are 2 solutions. You can do therapy or you can do medication.
Right.
Didn't suit me. So I pulled out, went to the coaching profession, because coaching is about not changing someone, not fixing something broken, which is what psychology, medical end of it. It's helping someone find who they are and reach their potential.
And that's an interesting distinction, because I agree with you there. I love the coaching side. When I'm working with other business leaders, it's how do I understand? It's like performing a SWOT analysis on a business. You're trying to figure strengths and weaknesses, and the weaknesses, you aren't necessarily trying to medicate or address only the weaknesses. How do I take those strengths to compensate for areas that you might need help?
Yes.
How do we mitigate so that it's not a blind spot, and then help you continue to grow? I just don't want to sedate people and have them live in this existence where they can't excel. I was watching a program the other day with a young lady that has autism. It was discovered when she was young. and her parents said, no, we're going to give you what you need, a lot of counseling, a lot of support. And she went on to do some incredible things. She started competing with, I think it was a couple of sports, lacrosse, whatever the sports were, with the men, guys that were much bigger and the like than she was. But part of it was just that mental piece of understanding that you can do it. Like there's a support system here. We realize that this is a challenge, but we're not going to succumb to the challenge as is. Let's figure out a way to help you grow.
Beyond
and I love that in business.
Yes. Oh, yes, because it's still there, the labels.
It is. I was watching a program about Martha Stewart and her life in her own words. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
I've seen that.
And so I hadn't watched it before, really done a lot of research on her. I knew of her, of course, and I knew of her journey. But she had a similar discussion, I think, in her youth. This is what you can become, only these 3 areas. And then you'll get married and have kids and move on. Well, she went on to work on Wall Street. And then she created her own company much later on. She created a catering company at first that transitioned into the Martha Stewart Omni Media, which, and I didn't realize that she was the first American female to become a billionaire. And just an incredible journey before she had some of her issues. And then her rebound has been fascinating to watch. But it's cool to see that evolution and to see people grow, probably with the help of someone like you that can kind of coach them to that next level.
Well, you do believe in you.
Right.
Because I think when it comes down to excelling, as entrepreneurs always want to do to get to the top, they're really sometimes held back by their limiting beliefs of what they can't do. And in the long run, if you look at like Olympic athletes who compete, they're all the same capacity. They all have the same creative abilities in the entrepreneurial world. But who believes in themselves the most, the confidence, is usually what is the key to success.
And that's an interesting point, because I often ask when I look at sports, what's the difference between, let's say, any professional player? I mean, they're all at the professional basketball level, even football level, they're all gifted. They're all really good at their craft.
Absolutely.
But what makes the difference between a professional player and one that becomes the next Michael Jordan or LeBron or Larry Bird or any of those? There's just something unique, maybe in their discipline, their focus, that separates them from everyone else. And it's interesting.
Once they find that.
And once they find that, and you're right. And I think sometimes a good coach can bring that out, whether an actual sports coach or a life coach or a business coach. Just having someone that can tease that out.
It's invaluable. I always like Tom Landry's definition of what a coach is.
Right.
He says, what a coach does, it tells you sometimes things you don't want to hear. It makes you see things that you don't really want to see about yourself, so that it unveils the person that is your highest potential.
Right. Well, and so as I was preparing and thinking through our conversation today, that was one of the things that stood out with you. You're not afraid to tell these big CEOs what they need to hear.
Well, but you asked me a really important question is, how did I, earlier in a conversation, how did I get to coach CEOs? Yes. And I think that's the core of being able to be bold enough to tell them honestly what they can't see.
Right.
And it comes from not choosing that as a niche for myself. It chose me.
Right.
And it came about because I've always been honest and frank with people. And so as that unrolls, then people are drawn to me.
Right. So
it's not something that you can really say, I'm going to coach CEOs.
Right.
No, CEOs do not want to be sold to.
Correct.
So you just have to present authentically who you are.
Right.
And I like to be truthful and bold and direct. And who will tell a CEO that? Right. Not anyone in the building.
Was it hard making that transition from working in behavioral health care to being a coach? And what was that rhythm like? So if you have someone out listening to the program and they want to become the next you or a Tony Robbins, I know that he's a motivational speaker, but there are a number of other coaches. What does that transition look like? How do you become that person?
Yes, it's the same thing that I work with CEOs when I get them as on their mindset.
Yes.
Because we grew up with so many stories and limiting beliefs and shaping events that if we don't really figure out who we are, then we can't move forward. So for me, to become who I want to be, I really have to look at two sides of myself, the strengths, like you mentioned, and I also have to look at the conditioning, because it's created a personality that is covering up my real self sometimes, all those limits. And I have to take those limits off for myself before I can teach someone else how to do that.
Right. So tell me about the other books.
Okay.
Well, which book do you think was the most complicated one to write? Now, oftentimes the first book seems like the most complicated because you're just getting in. But was it the first book or one of the other subsequent?
The first book was the most vulnerable,
Okay.
telling my story. The second book, I wanted to explain my ideology.
Gotcha.
Okay. I ended up with a book very thick and very dense.
Okay.
Called Divine Intelligence.
Okay.
But it was the most complicated to write because I had to sort through what it is I believe about things and decide who I am as choice, not by who my dad said I was going to be or my mom or teachers. I had to clean the slate and say, who are you, Jayne Gardner? And what do you believe about the way the world works?
Now, so for those CEOs, I know a lot of CEOs might look at this and, they're very confident, right? They've created a product, they feel successful because their product is doing well. But I think getting to the point where they can have that level of introspection and trying to figure out who they are as a leader is so critical. And a lot of times they might think, oh, that's just unnecessary. I'm here to run a business. But having that kind of introspection that you just described helps, I believe, a leader get to the next level. And so I suspect your journey to write that book is probably very useful as you give others an understanding of their journey.
You have to do it first, before you can teach it.
Right.
Well, and, I think there was a Harvard Business Review research that polled the professors in business schools and said, what is the most important indicator of a good leader?
Okay.
And they had a consensus. It was self-awareness, just what you said.
Interesting. Yeah.
That it's looking in intuitively. Can you see who you are, who you're not? And in any conversation, come at it with curiosity without some sort of a bias, a cognitive bias.
And when I graduated from undergrad, I thought I'm going to put together just a collection of memories from the 4 years because it'd been great. I met presidential candidates by the time I finished. I'd interned in the United States Senate, had some really neat experiences. And I created this portfolio that documented it, and I named it Reflections. And so there was an image of me with the same image as a reflection. And I use that and you're right, that journey of self-reflection and understanding is just so critical.
And the point where you learn the most is in that reflection, you have a shadow.
Right, you do.
And that's the gold, really, where you find out who you are.
Right.
And it's kind of the turning point for a lot of CEOs I coach. When I tell them what it is that I'm seeing their shadow side doing, I get one of two things. I get fired or I get hired for a long time because it is hard for any of us to see what we're not the best at or what people are saying out there about us that we could use as a way to modify, improve ourselves.
Now, from book number 2, what would be one of the biggest key elements that you want someone to take from the book? As you think back, you said it was very dense with information, which is fantastic. So for that reader that really wants to dig in, it sounds like a great book. It's not the Cliff Notes version. I don't know if anyone uses Cliff Notes these days.
That's a good point. But, AI would be a better.
But yeah, what point would you have him take from that specific book? And I know we've just discussed some of the concepts, but
yes, that you have within you the most unlimited power in the universe.
Okay.
And so divine intelligence is within all of us. Sometimes we look out there.
Right.
That story of, God's up there for the perfect person, but we have to look inside.
Right. Very cool.
Because we're sitting there.
Now, from book 2, where did you go?
Well, book 3 is actually 3 books that are related.
Okay.
Okay. So Best Job Ever is the book. And then I have a workbook and a journal. So it's a set that I take into businesses when I know they want a culture around safety and growth and that sort of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I brought one to you today.
Yes.
This is the workbook.
I like
Ronnie.
that.
I'm going to give this one to you first.
Okay. I love it. Okay. And that's the Best Job Ever.
This is the Best Job Ever book.
Wonderful.
And it's written by one of the CEOs that I worked with.
Okay.
Well, the first guy that said to me, let's put this as a coaching culture in my company, this process.
Interesting.
That you've developed. Let's make everybody have it available to everybody. And so we started with him, which is where I always start, taking him through the process of finding out what they're not, their limiting beliefs, how to break through, how to rewire into being those shaping events, ignoring them and becoming your authentic self. And he loved it so much that he said, I want my leadership team to take this. I want anybody in the company that wants to take it, have it available.
Oh, fantastic.
And so we created this coaching culture.
Coaching culture. And that's an interesting concept. I became a certified trainer in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I implemented that program. It was a Fortune 500 company, only with their executives in a specific market. And the whole goal was really the same. They had a very vibrant culture at this organization, but they wanted to continue to enhance that. And as they brought in new leaders, because they were growing so much, they wanted them to really dive into this cultural aspect and find ways to, one, find themselves, make sure that they're finding good balance within themselves so that they can be even more productive from a business perspective. But walk me through what that culture concept looks like. And I think I don't know if you've had a chance to spend any time around the 7 habits.
Yes,
I use this. It's been nearly 20 years ago that I implemented it, and I still love the values. I know so many of the new systems that are developed around corporate culture and executive coaching still implements a lot of those same values. But it was incredible, from the videos, big rocks and little rocks, to the different concepts in it. It's just amazing and still relevant, in my opinion, today.
Absolutely. And his daughter just wrote his final book. I don't know if you've read it.
Okay.
But yes, I think that the one I take away from the 7 habits is seek first to understand.
Absolutely.
Because, but I want to add to that, and that's that mindset, that inner work. That's my contribution to having a culture. Once you know who you are and your beliefs, you can conflict with other people comfortably. Right. Because my course also takes away the emotional reactivity that people have. So they're not so being led around by their emotional brain.
And that's an interesting premise, because you're right. That's the 5th habit, the seek first to understand, then to be understood. I was working with someone who's an executive as well, and I began to present them with a concept. And before I could even get a few words out, they're already answering.
Yes.
And then I have to tell them, let me finish the question first, because you just answered something that totally wasn't the question.
That's right.
But just being able to take a moment to sit back and listen and observe, and then let's have a conversation around solutions or ideas. But you have to hear the question first. Right? Sounds like you're having that same general concept with CEOs.
Well, it's such a good determiner for me. If I get in a conversation with a CEO and that happens, I kind of pull back a little bit, and I think, maybe this isn't the right person for me. Because that coming at the world with that attitude, I can tell them like you did, but if they keep coming back at me with wanting to inform me or tell me something, I realize that's the attitude they're taking with their people.
It is. It's their natural state, though.
Yes.
And I found that it takes time to get them to relax and feel comfortable.
That's true.
And then when you get in that, in the trust, that trust is a huge piece.
Absolutely.
And then once you kind of get in that inner circle, they know that you're not there to cause harm, that you're not there to embarrass, which is important, that you're working behind the scenes to help them really figure things out. Then the relationship evolves.
Yes. And I want to give your audience a chance to find out what their conditioned self, their blind side is. I have an assessment on my website they could go take for free. And it's called the Conditioned Self Personality Inventory.
Okay.
So, and the reason I say that is your reference to a leader that's very commanding, very in charge. Okay. Because that is a beautiful setting, a beautiful platform for being a dynamic leader. And first you have to realize the downside of that. Right. And if leaders coming at you with that persuasion are really eager, sometimes they are really eager to know, I found this doesn't work very well with my son.
Right.
My teenage son, And so that's what I'm hired for a lot, is my background in family systems.
Okay.
Because the void I feel like I fill for CEOs is I sometimes enter the scene when they have a crisis with their family. Maybe their teenage boy is acting out, or their 7-year-old won't go to school, or they don't have they have a challenge with their partner.
Right.
Okay. So we start there, and that's where the trust is so important. Sure. because they're going to tell me things that are so personal that I really find it, it really is neat to see what happens. I do have a story, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can tell.
Yes.
You reminded me stories about CEOs. Well, one of the first CEOs that I was hired to coach, the HR of a very large company called and said, "Oh, Dr. Jayne, we have a guy running this business that he just tells, and he's so macro manager, And she said, we want to hire you to change that." And I went to myself, I went, "Oh no!" But they talked me in, and I was desperate. I wanted business, so I took it.
Okay.
Well, I got on that conversation, that first coaching call with him, and he was ranting. And what the HR person had said that was a key term was, she said, he's just a nitpicker. Okay. Well, he got on the call, and I said, "Well, tell me about what you wish you could be different in your company."
Right.
He said, "Well, everybody here is a nitpicker." Just like that, that he was projecting that out.
Right.
So anyway, I said to him, this was my challenge. I said, "Could I share with you maybe how other people perceive you as a nitpicker?"
Right.
That's a challenging question for anyone to have it turned like that on you. And I was doing that a little too quickly.
Right.
But he just went, and I thought, "Oh, I'm out of here." But then he said, "I got to tell you something." He said, "My son," he said, "I had breakfast with him this morning, and he told me I was a son of a..."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Oh," and he started crying.
Oh, my.
And we got to the heart of what he really wanted to coach about right there.
What a breakthrough in that moment.
And he hired me for life, so to speak.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Because I dared to challenge him to see that part of himself, that he might be that nitpicker himself and making everybody else be that. Because in my ideology, whatever's in your mind, our mindset creates our world.
It does.
If we think if we know we're a nitpicker, or we're always trying to change people, we create a world where they want to change us.
Right. Now, you mentioned something. This is probably one of you're probably one of the few people on our program that I can ask this question to, but that balance between the psychology of the individual and their family, and then their relationship at work, whether the CEO or senior executive or a regular employee. And I've had human resources report up to me. But you speak about it in terms of they've got to fix that family unit first, because it does have an impact. Now, so my question is, what kind of relationship is there between that family unit and their business and productivity? I think most people think they can keep it separate. Having had human resources roll up to me, I realized they can't.
It's not separate.
They in their mind, they think they are, and they're doing a good job balancing. But when I look at their work outcomes and productivity and maybe their position in life at work, their emotional state, they're not doing a good job at balancing it.
So tell me what you really want to know about that.
I don't know. I think what you mentioned about that CEO's son having an impact on his disposition, and for him to break down like that, and really what started out as a professional conversation, a business conversation, just says that there is that connectivity between home life and work. I'll give you an example. You reminded me of this. There's so many, like you, I have so many stories, thousands and thousands of real life stories that most people probably wouldn't believe. But at one organization, I had a young man who was a senior manager in the business, and his productivity started to trail off significantly. Didn't know what was happening. And so we had a number of conversations around it. What ended up happening, which was just heartbreaking, he discovered that his wife was having a relationship with someone else outside of the marriage. He caught them, and on her computer, he found all these pictures of the two of them in fairly compromising positions. And to watch him go through that journey of first discovering it, and they had kids. It was to watch him fall apart at work. He couldn't focus on anything at work. It was just, he would sit on his computers looking at all of the information he had discovered. And it was heartbreaking for me to watch him spiral. And it was just hard. And so when people mention that they can separate, there's just so much dynamic to having a successful work environment, including your family.
But, I think my experience with CEOs is one of their brilliance is they can compartmentalize.
They can. A lot of them can. And they think they can do it well.
And they do it well in their business for a certain degree of growth. They can make it to a certain level. But if they really want that business that gives them that fire number, that willingness, that ability to retire.
Right.
They're all going, they have a number.
Right.
They all have a number. I call it a fire number. And I have a formula for how to figure it out because that's what I help them get to is their fire number. But back to your question. So it is very difficult, though, to keep them compartmentalized when you get to really get close to making money and to selling your business and everything. Mm-hmm. So what I help them with is realize that what it is you're doing at work, like if you're a commander, if that's your blind spot from the assessment that is on my website, you could be a commander, you could be a perfectionist, you could be a pleaser, but accommodator. But as far as balancing your life, you may be just the opposite of that at home.
Right.
I have some of the most powerful, great leaders that are just very commanding at work, very in charge, go home, and they let that spouse push them around.
Oh, my. Okay.
So they have to see that they get so tired and they work so hard that when they go home, they don't have anything left.
Right.
So that's when we have to balance and realize that having fun in life with your family gives you energy so that you can go out and make a living.
Now, I totally agree with that. That family dynamic, you get that energy to be able to go out and kind of
because what are you working
take on the
for?
challenge. Right.
It
gives you that meaning.
Your family. Absolutely. To connect the dots.
So you mentioned the personality assessments. I'd love to get your really quick take, and then we can come back with this the next time we have you on. Early in my career, I joined an organization that utilized these personality assessments just to help us figure out how to communicate with one another. And what would you tell a growing young business where, let's say, their HR person approaches them and says, we should consider having this personality assessment incorporated in our business? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that the first thing you want to start with is the strengths. Because my personality test gives you your blind side.
Okay.
And so you always want to have a positive anchor in the beginning of any process of what you're good at.
Right.
So I would start with I'd love to go into a business. The first thing I'd do is give them a day of learning their best self, their strength, and remembering all the positive anchors. Like if I ask you, what do you remember as one time when you knew you'd aced it? When you just went, yes, outside the door. Well, you have a lot of those. But that's what we want to start with because we don't want someone to have to think about. Nobody wants to look at what they've done wrong. And yet, when we really build that person up and be in that really great influencer and great personality, they have to realize that they're vulnerable.
Right.
And most of them do at some point. And that if they don't work with their blind side, their shadow side, which they can't see, it's behind them. That's why a coach steps in. If they don't balance themselves with what they don't do so well.
Right.
Ray Dalio, author of Principle, was one of my mentors. And he says that this quote just builds into everything I believe in. He says, when I get up in the morning, I know what my job is, me. And he focuses on getting himself in order and being different at work that way, coming from what can I do better? What can I? And so not only do we need to know what our strengths are, that's a very popular concept right now because it feels so good, but we also need to balance that with what do we need to grow on? Because there's where we get lessons in life and we learn from them and we grow that we have more of these positive anchors out there.
Now, when you come back on our program, I want to talk more about those personality assessments because there's so much debate and insight around those. And then I'd love to finish talking about your books.
Oh, let's do that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Jayne Gardner, thank you for joining us on Business Decoded. It
was wonderful. Thanks for the decoding part of business. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.